Karibu to Siasa Africa, a podcast that is a weekly program that delves into and examines the political happenings in Africa on a weekly basis. And today, I'm joined once again with Thomas. Thomas, thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for inviting me again.
Some of the things that we're going to be covering today includes foreign spying company that rigs African elections for fun. We're also going to talk about DRC soldiers' strange 4 a.m. incursion in Rwanda. And last but not least, we're going to pay tribute to the South African singer, AKA. Stay tuned and let's start with the most juicy story of the week. Thomas, 27 rigged elections in the African continent.
Yeah, it's a bit of the crazy story of the week. The story that came out. This story came out of some journalists being killed. Like that's the first things to know. So this is like literally some journalists working on it get killed. So other journalists, as a conglomerate of journalists, thinking no one can be killed in the middle of a story. So they try to trace the story and continue to see where did that journalist had. And it was an Indian journalist, right? And what she had was really big. So there's that company, and they call themselves Team George, right? What they do is they offer their services to rig elections to whoever's in charge or whoever can afford them, as they say, right? So some journalists went and pretended they represented like a candidate in an election in Africa, and they record like the whole scene and what the guys offer for them, right? We're speaking like deep stuff. We're speaking like proper spying agencies. So those were old Mossad agents, and what they do is like they will collect all range of information on candidates and try to get things out, right? So just give you like a small example. They would have, for example, in the election in 2015 between Buhari and Jonathan Goodluck paid for their services, and he suddenly have access to videos of Buhari that are taken within Buhari's meeting. So that means like there's a mole, there's a spy, in a private spy, because no national agency, but that actually were inside the meeting collecting information for the opposition, right? So there's a lot of juicy story like this, and we really wonder what they found. The day of the election in Nigeria, for instance, what they did is that they block everyone like phone calls, right? So they literally delete like SIM card for like 24 hours, 48 hours. So every politician that was supposed to organize for the election, mass mobilize and make sure everyone goes to vote and stuff like this, couldn't do it because their phone literally didn't work anymore. Imagine your president like with a phone that don't work the day of the elections. That's a really weird scenario. So we know that they rig election in Senegal. They tried in Senegal. They tried in Nigeria. They tried in Kenya also. Apparently, they were against Ruto, so Ruto won at the end. But it's really interesting to understand like how weak our democratic systems are in front of those new technologies, right?
Nigeria is one of the biggest economies in the African continent, and they're going to be having the election in a few days. Should we be worried?
No, 100%. So now we know how they operate. We know exactly how they operate, and so it's not so much about being worried. It's about being realistic, right? Some people have money in that elections. They know there's a lot of money in Nigerian politics. So definitely they have to outsource some sort of. They paid some company to do this type of job, right? So those company, what they would do is they will create like a lot of online profile. So they will create a lot of online profile, and they will try to dig stories on candidates in favor stories that favor their own candidate, right? So for sure, like in the last 10 days before the election, what you see is suddenly like a lot of story popping up where this one first wife said something, or this other one is accused of being in a hotel or what. And at the end, what it does, it creates a sense of confusion, right? And that confusion serves the power. This idea that, for example, in the case of Jonathan Goodluck, voters in Nigeria had like at least 10 years of knowing exactly what the guys do in power, right? But in the last days before the election, suddenly there's a lot of other information coming in, and suddenly like what he has done as a politician is not the main question. You understand? So those companies create confusion, organized confusion. One day they might contact you to see if you can't just like pop up a story. They would contact you or me, and they would say, "Hey, you know what? I give you like $200, $250. and you dig and you come out with that story. You said you found it, right? And this is a real story, so you would be like, cool, this is like a lot of click for me, this is a lot of audience, right? So that's how it works. Those are powerful companies that have a lot of skills that they used for national spying agency before, and now they recycle themselves and they offer themselves to whoever can pay, and politicians in this continent can pay. So yes, we are, to answer your question, we should be worried about elections, but not just the Nigerian ones. There's a lot of election this year. I'm thinking of the Congolese one. I'm thinking, yeah, there's a lot going on there.
And for our audience, can you tell them who we're referring to when we say they?
So in that case, it's a particular company. It's they call themselves Team George, but like spy always use nicknames, so you wouldn't really know. But basically, those are, as I said, those are companies that will collect information, that will collect data. So for instance, let me give you another example so you understand. In Kenya, like in Kenya, and you being an East African yourself, there's a lot of like WhatsApp groups and Telegram groups and political groups where people exchange, right? So in that case, like the company could take your account. So they would take all of your account on YouTube, on Twitter, and on WhatsApp, and you don't know about it, and send message for you to other people. So like, for example, you will send a message on your YouTube channel with your actual face talking, because they have all the artificial intelligence that can make fake videos, fake pictures, fake conversation between you and I. I could be speaking to one of their bots right now and not even knowing. Those are the type of things that can be really useful to rig an election. But my point, I think something like your audience need to understand really, really seriously is, what do we do of our democratic stage? Because we know that it allows foreign actors to become powerful. It allows money to become powerful, right? So think of Kenyatta, think of Jonathan Goodluck. Those are not poor men, they're not men on the street, right? So they have money to afford to create a sphere of disorganization, like to create fake news, to make sure that they dig on information on other candidates. So when it comes out, it looks really bad. Like Ramaphosa in his farm, right? It's a classic story. It's a spy that goes to the police, and suddenly Ramaphosa have to lead the country totally differently, right? Where does that story come from? Where does it come from? It comes from spies at the first point, right? You can't get those stories like you and I can't get those stories. You need professionals, right? So then after that, yeah, they outsource journalists. They will give like Renatus $50, and Renatus have to do like, I don't know, 20 tweets against president. So it looks like there's a lot of happening, and Renatus' tweet is going to be retweeted by 50,000 bots. Those are fake people that they created online. And so suddenly, like, they make a boom, and we're like, oh, okay, what Renatus had said maybe like makes sense for the national debate. We need to debate it. But we actually don't need, because it was just one tweet organized by a company. Does that make sense to you? Do you understand?
So it seems like we really have to be careful in terms of what's going on during election period, especially news. Do you think this will also happen in Congo next year when they have their elections?
Definitely, Congo it can be a big factory of fake news. There is a lot of fake news up like that around Congolese story all the time, and this is a highly divided like narrative, if you can say, right? In one hand, you have the M23, that is a rebel movement that is highly acting in east of Congo and militarily successful against the Congolese army and the East African force. And on the other side, you have Congolese and people that support Congo that says Rwanda is rigging our natural resources. It is not normal that Rwanda exports certain minerals it do not even produce. That means they got it from Congo, right? So like Rwanda should start being that supermarket. And for a lot of people, those are two narratives that are equal, right? On one hand, the Rwanda's government, and the other hand, like the Congolese one. But the reality is that we don't really know. What we know is it's complicated to make an elections successful in Congo. There's very few elections that have been successful. It's a gigantic country. And we also know that therefore there is a lot of resources, so a lot of people's interest, and it would be really easy for a businessman to say to contract that company and go and see a candidate and say, hey, this company is going to work for you, I'm paying for your campaign. in exchange of that, I want the mine of Katanga tomorrow. I want the mine of diamonds after tomorrow. So there is something really important here. A few weeks ago in January, a fighter jet was targeted by the Rwandan army in DRC in Goma airport. The Congolese pilot was accused of trespassing Rwandan national borders with DRC, denies. This week has tension rising between the African giant and small but powerful Rwandan neighbors. Rwandan accused DRC soldiers of an attack on one of their border posts near Bukavu. And according to Kigali on Wednesday, a dozen of Congolese soldiers passed the border around 4 a.m. to shoot at their Rwandan counterparts. According to Kinshasa, those soldiers were chasing criminals in the area and never crossed the borders. How can you know which one's true, which one is not true? I can't tell you. But I know it's part of a larger disinformation matching. It's important that all the time an information that is the truth emerge, a counter-information emerge, and that's how it confused the public.
At 3 a.m. last week, I read the news that the South African famous rapper and iconic artist, AKA, was murdered. And the moment I saw the news, this is what came to my mind.
Oh, sir. I tell them niggas don't bother. I be in the East Coast getting more saga. I be in the land of my forefathers. In the club, spend the rands on the gold bottles. Yeah.
Personally, I was disappointed on what the hell is going on in the African continent. I don't know how the South Africans are feeling about it right now.
It's a complicated story, but we all feel really sad. I think it's exactly as you described. We all wake up more or less last week Saturday with the news, thinking like, no, that can't be true. That must be a fake news. The guy was big, and he was a continental artist. He used to represent South Africa on the continent. And as we heard, I heard AKA, I danced some AKA in Senegal, I danced in AKA in Tanzania, danced in AKA within Uganda. It was really a continental artist. I don't know if you remember, last year there were a big clash between AKA and Burna Boy, right? Burna Boy saying like, you guys are killing Nigerian in South Africa. That is not okay. I'm not coming. And AKA defending like the fact that it's not all South African, and it's a generalization to say South Africans are going after Nigerians. There's a lot of Afropolitanism here in South Africa. People are used to African migrants. So anyway, there were a lot of. It was an important actor. I think it was really like one of the leader of a generation of rappers that saw South Africa and Africa as a big like. But their big market where they want to make it work. He used a lot of other artists in his songs. We're thinking of Fela and Versace. That song was amazing. He speaks about Fela Kuti, a Nigerian man, but he speaks about it with his South African perspective, and he ended up like doing like a dope song. Fela and Versace. Yeah. So yeah, AK is not here anymore, and we are South African are devastated and ask themselves like, where does the best always live first? What saddens South Africans, and then I think it's a shared feelings all around the continent, is that this is we can't continue to assassinate like African main talents. You know, like it sounds a bit like the story of the Biko, the story of the Samoa Machel, the story of the Lumumba, the Amilcar Cabral. It's like all the time there's a man successful that speak to the people that you know come from the people. So AKA didn't like grow up as a rich man. He come from the hood, you know. All the time, it's really sad to see once again a talented man that was killed before he could express his full talent. The continent need to make sure his talent grow bigger and bigger. Otherwise, some of us will express that talent somewhere else. And we know a lot of Africans are successful outside of the continent. We can't just let talented people go, whatever, die or go away. We need them here.
We absolutely need them here. Thank you, Thomas. For our audience, these are some of the stories that we have shared with you today that have been on the breaking news in the African continent. And if you'd like for us to discuss in depth some of these topics, then kindly share your comments below so that we can know what's good for you, what works best for you.
There were an interesting discovery. I don't know if you heard about it in Kenya this week. Have you heard anything that came out of Kenya that was a little bit unexpected?
I haven't. Please inform me.
So they found some sort of a butchery where Ipo were kind of butchered, I guess, and these are like some of the oldest stone tools in the world, right? So literally, we know that the oldest tool made with stones have been found in Africa. So the first time like humans decided to do certain things that we still do today, such as eating a nice steak of a cow and not of a hippo. But the scientists have found like those stones, and what it reveals like how old are African civilizations, even in the global context. Nowhere else we find those type of tools. Nowhere else human civilization have had developed this type of tools before. So I think it's something to remember. And yeah, next time you go to Kenya, maybe just ask for a small tartar of hippos. Maybe it's still quite good.
Maybe it's still quite good. Thank you so much for joining us today. Currently, we have achieved the goal of having 1,000 subscribers on the platform. Right now, our goal is to get to 2,000 subscribers in this month. So if you enjoy our content and you haven't yet subscribed, kindly do us a favor by subscribing, and we'll keep on bringing you the latest happenings in the continent. Stay tuned. Peace out.